welcome back. Or if you are new here, my name is Morgan and I create stories. Here on YouTube, I talk about creating my own story within my life and creative business and everything like that. Today, I am going to be working on a new story. I started this earlier this week and it's pretty exciting. I originally started it intending it to be just a short, easier story that I could tell by myself on TikTok. That way I don't have to worry about trying to collaborate or anything like that. And it's just gotten progressively more complicated, and I may be asking my friends for a little help on it because I can't do anything small. I have to create big. So this is where I'm at now. But I am still working on the story and the videos and what those are going to look like. So I'm going to be working on that today. When I'm creating stories, I like to listen to cinematic music. Hidden Citizens is probably one of my main go-tos, but there's a bunch out there that I also listen to. I also have a couple of different journals that I keep. One is for sketches and gluing stuff down, and the other is for notes and scripting things. Basically just planning out the story in writing. Sometimes with my stories, I will go back and I'll write out a script either in the journal or I'll type it up, and then other times I will just kind of freestyle it as I go. I tend to visualize my stories in my head when I'm planning them, much like The Queen's Gambit, which I highly recommend. If you haven't checked it out, go watch that show. But the main character in that tends to visualize the chess pieces moving on the board. I do the same with my stories. I visualize what is happening, what needs to happen, and basically play out different scenarios to figure out which one is going to be the best. I don't do this in a linear fashion either. I usually figure out the big story, the big picture, and then I start filling in the blanks from there, figuring out different plot points or story points that I want to occur, how to make those make sense, what makes sense based on the character. There's a lot of different factors that go into planning a story, especially when it's going to be film. Then I have to also consider costumes and what kind of costume items I have access to. I also need to think about where I can actually film. If I want to film outside so that it looks a little bit more cinematic, what do I have access to that is easy to get to? Are there parts that I can film indoors with my black screen hung up behind me? Things like that. Those are all things that are going to influence the story because I need to look at what actually makes sense. Obviously, an alien spaceship will be harder for me to do. For this particular project, I think I'm going to be using music predominantly from my subscription on Epidemic Sounds. The reason for this being is that I would kind of like to post these videos on YouTube, just like put them all together in one long video to tell my story, and I can't really do that if I'm just using whatever sounds I come across on TikTok. It's kind of a tricky situation because obviously there are other songs on TikTok that I listen to and I think would be great for a certain scene, but I know I'll have issues with those later, so I have to go through and find music that will work for those same type of scenes, same feel, things like that on Epidemic Sounds. I then put them into a playlist to use later, and I also a lot of times will listen to those songs and write out scenes or videos or parts of the story while I'm listening to them so that I know that the feel of the story fits the song. This also helps me make sure that the song fits the story, because sometimes I will put one in my playlist and then try to create to it and realize it doesn't actually fit the story I'm trying to tell. I try to really visualize what I'm going to be filming because I want to make sure that it all fits within 60 seconds since TikTok lets you create 60-second videos. Sometimes that does prove to be a bit challenging, so I do have to keep in mind that I may have to rearrange things, but otherwise I can usually get pretty close. Today I was thinking a lot more about where I want to film. I know I want to film outside because it does fit the story that I'm trying to tell, but finding a good place to do so that doesn't have a lot of people or anything like that can be a little bit tricky. So there are a few areas kind of in the Denver area that might work, and I was just kind of looking around today to see where those are, get a better sense of what they might look like, just for potentially checking out later. Overall, I still have quite a bit of work left to do on this story. I do have the costume pieces coming in the mail, so I should be getting those in the next week or so. But I have to finish planning, and then I will be writing a script for this one to make sure that it is conveying the story the way I want it to be played out, and also so that I know if I need to ask friends for help, I can give them scripts and tell them exactly what I'm going to need. That's kind of the beautiful thing about TikTok, is that everything can be filmed social distanced and appropriate, so I just need to make sure that I'm very clear about what it is that I'm looking for. I will definitely be sharing more about this on social media, but a lot of the sneak previews and behind the scene content will be on my Patreon. So if you're interested in seeing any of that, definitely head over there and check that out. And speaking of my patrons, I just want to give a huge shout out and thank you to them. I would not be able to start working on this story if it weren't for their support and enthusiasm for my stories. I was able to order costume pieces specifically for this and materials that I need to make props because they are patrons and because they support me in what I do. I know this was a short video this week, but thank you for joining me. I upload every Friday, and if you're interested in following me in my journey as a creative entrepreneur, don't forget to click subscribe. I hope you all take care, stay safe, and follow your hearts and intuition, and stay weird. See you next time.